With regard to the actual rental business, and this is where companies like Advantage Asset Management come into play, is you need to really check out your tenants. Like I said, I've got enough stories, and again, the tenants that I just told you the horror story about a few minutes ago, the police hauling the husband away, we could never anticipate that. There's absolutely nothing in the paperwork on these people that would suggest this situation. And like I said, we're still working the last of the details out, but I came out pretty much 100%. So, but I did some hustling to get that done. But it's if you are a busy executive, having the expertise, knowing who the contractors are to come work on your property, knowing what needs to be done, doing the move-in inspection, doing the move-out inspection. There's a lot of details involved in it, but if you're doing it yourself, certainly you want to have a tenant evaluation form. I get quite a bit of information from my tenants before I consider them, and a lot depends on what the risk factor is. Like I have a property that I'm renting primarily to college students. It's next to UTMB Galveston. So we're renting to medical students, nursing students, and all that. And I'm sorry, but those are A tenants. Could we have a bad tenant? Sure. But part of the tie-in here is you've got a location that feeds a specific demographic, and that demographic works great for where the property is located. So you need to think through those issues when you're out shopping for property. Is that who's going to rent this property and what works? And one of the things that people look at if you're renting property that's friendly to families is it in a good school district? Just the same kind of stuff that people consider as buyers, people look at as renters also. So one of the things that we all get tempted to do, especially if we've had a property vacant for a while, is to extend credit. That's what you're doing when you're a landlord. You're putting someone in on credit, basically, that they're going to pay the next 12 payments or the next 24 payments. Is you want to make sure if it is somebody who's got a credit issue, that you take a really hard look at the issue and see if it's something that you can buy into. Recently divorced people a lot of times can be very good tenants. They're rebuilding their credit, but they may also have been the person who was the spendthrift and triggered the divorce. So it's just a real tough call. I personally have rented a lot to young tenants who do not have a track record, and I rely on their previous landlord. But I've had situations where people literally moved into my fourplex from home and were coming for graduate school. One of the things that I've done with very young tenants, first of all, I don't rent to people who are below graduate school if I can. I primarily don't rent to undergraduates, and I'm in student market sometimes as a professor. That works for me. But you want to sure take a look at the situation, and don't be shy about getting a guarantee from someone who has no credit or damaged credit. And what I usually do is do the first year. So I try and find multi-year tenants, even if they're on a one-year lease, that people that logically will probably rent for another 2 or 3 years. Doesn't always work, but the less friction, the less turnover you have in your property, the better. So you have people coming in, and when we did a presentation last fall, one of the things we talked about is so many thousands of units were damaged in Hurricane Harvey. It produced a bonanza of short-term tenants. And as much as there's a lot of really good people that get flooded out, it's not a reflection of the individuals, it's a reflection of they're planning to move back to their house if they were a homeowner, and then they're going to be a tenant. And sometimes having them as tenants is not a blessing, because you're going to end up doing a cleanup and doing a transition. And pretty much my rule is every time a tenant moves out, no matter what happens, you take a hit. I mean, you're going to pay you may pay a new rental fee if you have your properties listed for rent. You may find that there are cleanup things that the previous tenant would have tolerated, but the new tenant comes in and says, oh, well, there's scratches on that wall, oh, well, this is this way. And so each time it's an opportunity for you to spend more money on your property, and so something else to consider. Again, we're pretty much past the worst of the Harvey situation, and I must say, sadly, many of my friends are not back 100% in their houses. I have 4 friends personally who got flooded out, and most of them, if they were 2-story houses, they lived on the 2nd floor, and because they had pets. Kind of an interesting thing. We're going to touch base on that in a second.